Powered Parachute 6-1 Basic Flight Maneuvers. Let's delve into the fundamental flight maneuvers that serve as the building blocks for all flying tasks. These maneuvers are the backbone of powered parachute or PPC operations. Now, the powered parachute comes equipped with two key flight controls, the throttle and steering controls. The throttle is our go-to for adjusting vertical speed, allowing us to climb or descend. Meanwhile, steering controls come into play when we want to make directional changes. It's important to note that powered parachute airspeed remains quite consistent, determined by factors like wing design, trim angle, and overall weight. Turning our attention to steering, most powered parachutes use foot pedals or bars, although some might feature hand controls. For simplicity, we'll stick to discussing foot controls in this explanation. Now, let's talk about the throttle. When we're up in the air, manipulating the throttle is how we control our altitude. Have a look at the figure 6.2 that shows how to apply steering input to one side of the trailing edge to turn. But here's the thing. Changes in throttle won't have a significant impact on our airspeed. The powered parachute maintains nearly the same speed despite adjustments in pitch angle, which is how we control our altitude. Descending with the throttle in a lower position causes the nose to point downward, while climbing involves pointing the nose skyward. It might seem like this changes the angle of attack, but in reality, the angle of trim, determined by factory-set suspension lines, remains quite constant. Now, before we jump into any maneuvers, it's crucial to perform clearing turns. This is a safety must-do to make sure our next move doesn't put us in the path of another aircraft. It's all about collision avoidance. Now, let's talk about turning the powered parachute. Steering is typically done through lines connected to the wing's trailing edge. Have a look at the figure 6.3 that shows the powered parachute attitude is based on relative positions of the aircraft on the natural horizon. When we push a foot steering control, we essentially pull down the trailing edge of that side's wing, initiating a turn. The powered parachute is cleverly designed to automatically coordinate turns as it flies straight into the relative wind. During turns, we might experience a pendulum effect, much like what happens with throttle changes. To avoid any awkward misalignments between the cart and wing, it's best to make our turns smooth and gradual. Understanding the dynamics of these flight maneuvers and how they interact with the unique features of the powered parachute is key to safe and effective piloting. Let's keep these basics in mind as we take to the skies. Now, let's delve into the essence of flying a powered parachute. It's all about developing that intuitive sense, often called the feel of the powered parachute. So, what does this mean? Well, it's not just about touching the controls, it's about using all your senses to navigate the skies. First off, listen closely to the sounds around you. The rush of air past you is like music, and as the volume goes up, it's telling you that speed is on the rise. The engine, with its distinct sounds in different flight conditions, becomes your in-flight DJ, helping you estimate not only your present speed but also where it's headed. Now, let's talk about the forces at play. When you're pulled into your seat or lifted against your seatbelt, that's the G-forces talking. These sensations, although not overpowering, are your body's way of telling you about the forces acting on your cart. A seasoned pilot with a finely tuned feel can predict the pendulum effect and handle bank changes with finesse. The wing's response to your controls varies with the weight and speed of your cart. This nuanced understanding lets you glide through the air smoothly, adjusting as needed. As a pilot, you're not just noticing things, you're perceiving them. This is where your flight instructor comes in. They guide you in honing these senses, helping you differentiate between just noticing and truly understanding what's happening around you. Now, let's talk attitude flying. It's all about visually aligning your powered parachute with the natural horizon. Pitch control, handled by the throttle, lets you raise or lower the nose. Bank control, managed by the steering controls, lets you tilt the powered parachute left or right. So, let's embrace the essence of feel. It's not just about the controls, it's about understanding the air, the sounds, and the forces. Let's now dive into the art of straight and level flight, a fundamental skill for any pilot. Picture this. You're cruising through the skies, maintaining a constant heading and altitude. This is the bread and butter of flying, and mastering it is key before venturing into other maneuvers. So, how do you achieve straight and level flight? It's about forming the right habits. First things first, you need a reference point on your powered parachute to gauge your position against the horizon. Now, every pilot might see this a bit differently based on where they're sitting, their height, and how they're sitting. So, sit normally, fix your reference points, and keep them in check. Pitch control, done with the throttle, helps you control the nose's position relative to the horizon. To maintain a constant altitude, you'll occasionally cross-check this with the altimeter. Adjusting throttle is your go-to-move for managing pitch attitude. Now, if your wing is even slightly banked, you'll find yourself turning. Unlike airplanes, in a powered parachute, you don't have visible wingtips for reference. So, you rely on a point on the horizon aligned with a point on your aircraft. Watch out for any change in direction. Your magnetic compass or GPS can be your friends here. Avoid fixating on the nose. Your attention needs to be on the lookout for air traffic, expanding your vision. Remember, smooth flying requires minimal control pressures if your aircraft is properly trimmed and the air is calm. Corrections should be measured and timely. Aim for precision. When it comes to altitude adjustments, especially close to the ground, think of your throttle as the main altitude control and the steering controls as fine-tuners. Flare, are using both steering controls, acts like a quick altitude adjustment but has its limitations. Now, let's talk common errors. Using the wrong reference points, forgetting them on subsequent flights, relying too much on instruments, over-controlling, and fixating on the nose are pitfalls to avoid. Develop a feel for your powered parachute, and remember, corrections should be timely and measured. So, let's get that straight and level flight perfected. It's the foundation for everything else you'll do in the skies.